Right, let's just. All right, hey, welcome. I'm Jem, and I have got Terence with me. We're just gonna do something pretty quick, and we want to take on certain questions that we think it benefits all of us in a community to see how we think through problems. So anyway, look at this question that's come in, and it's quite a meaty problem. I want to read this out. Hello, all. Looking for some input and important guidance. We recently finished our first PI planning event. So what we can ascertain straight away, this is something to do with SAFe. We are a Kanban team and don't follow sprints like other teams, as our functional teams deal with operational issues, left, right, and center. Okay, got it. So there's quite a reactive nature to the work. Leading this new team as a Scrum Master, I'd like some input on work estimation. Okay, so there's a focus on estimation. We have some very key dependencies. On teams, I want to get on their radar for things like testing. I want to get on their. Oh, there we go. We're using the wrong account. Never mind. Now we've definitely got a good time box, haven't we, Terence? Okay, estimation, fine. Our PI is naturally Q1, and I want to find out when a team can deliver a particular epic. So by this, Terence, I don't know if you're reading this. I'm hearing that someone wants to understand when another team, not their team, can deliver upon an epic.
So what I understand is, yeah, we're working through the PI for our own team, but we have dependencies on another team.
Yeah.
So we can only deliver our work when they've delivered an epic for us. And
Yes.
the question is, how do we do that? How do we get more predictable when we have dependency on other teams?
Yeah. Got you. So we're dependent on the other team delivering their bit before we can do our bit.
Yeah.
And from what I'm seeing is that the member or our peer here is asking about how do we figure that out?
So there's a number of ways of improving predictability for a team, but most of them involve that predictability being for your own team. It's very difficult to apply those same techniques on another team, a team that's not yours.
Yes.
So the first thing I'd be asking is what I'd be calling out is this dependency. That because if they don't deliver that, then we're stuck in the water, right? So the first thing I would do is I would talk to that other team and say, can you meet the state? It's as simple as having a discussion of we've got this, we need this dependency from you. Can you meet the state? The second thing is that if I wanted to get some more information out of them, I'll start looking at, is that team working in a stable way? So are they limiting their WIP? Are they right sizing their work items? Are they successful at meeting other commitments that they've had to meet in the past? What method are they using to come up with it, how certain they are that they're going to meet that date? Are they using just a straight burn down? Are they using Monte Carlo? What sort of method are they using to come up with that whether they can meet that date or not? So it's as simple as that, to be honest. I would just make the date very clear to the team, speak to them, can they meet it? And then I'll try and inspect. It depends on how close you are with the other team, but are they a stable team? Are they working in a predictable way? Have they met their dates in the past? Do we need to give them a bit of buffer ourselves? If they've given a date, do we need to say, look, let's expect it a sprint, 2 sprints after what they say? So I'd try and assess what's the level of risk of them meeting that date or not. And if I think that the risk is quite high because they're a team that's in chaos and they'll get lots of P1s coming through, or they're not limiting their WIP, whatever it is, then I would probably add a little bit of buffer on there and say, look, they've said they can meet the date, but let's give it another 2 weeks or 4 weeks. Let's plan for the worst case. If we think they'll be more predictable, then maybe we give them 1 week leeway instead of 4 weeks. So those are the sorts of things I'd be thinking about.
Yeah, see, that's really useful. I'm just sounding this out with you because if just to take a step back as well, what I'm hearing is, let's just go from here. This is an interesting situation because there's a Scrum Master trying to, probably increase value in the team, and so they've got a dependency, but that dependency is external. Now, presumably, the other team may have somebody who's acting in the capacity of a Scrum Master or some sort of facilitator. So to go to basics, the first question I have is, what is the, what is the connection? Yeah, what is the connection with the other team, right? Because we whether we give them the data or we impart knowledge, if the people concerned can't understand why this is important to get right, then they may not give us what we need. So what is the connection like with the other team and their Scrum Master, right? It doesn't have to be a Scrum Master, it could just be any agilist. Okay.
Yeah.
Do they understand that we have a need? Yeah. And do they regard it as important? Right. That's another thing. Because what can lead from that, if it is important, then we're able to kind of get into this stuff here. Because if we don't have the good old basics of awareness, let's say desire and support, we want to come in with support, right? And all of these cars are based on support, aren't they? Like knowledge, understanding. But if they're not aware and there's no desire, it can be hard to get here. So that's my first question. Do you have what you need to get that conversation going? That's the thing, right? And then leading on from what T's talking about, the prerequisites of predictability. So if they are willing to be open enough to go for us to go in and help them, then maybe we can ask about how stable is your team? And if we're talking about stable teams, we're talking about how long has that team been together? Is it a long-lived team? What number of external disturbances do they have? What is the composition between planned and unplanned work? All of these things matter. So we're with that. And then we can say understanding the delivery. So we can ask that question to our team with a dependency. How do you know what you know in terms of are you using flow metrics or just a good old burn down, whatever? And the reason we're raising these things, because it's possible when you ask these questions, you're going to see dysfunctions. The teams are constantly changing. There are lots of external interruptions. So you may need to help them if they're willing to create healthy boundaries. Or if they want to use these metrics, you might need to educate educate them if you understand what these things are. And the bread and butter one also is, instead of just a planning session, say in large scale Scrum, we're not really fans of safe per se. We think there are good ideas. I don't speak for Terence, but I think there are other options that could be more dynamic instead of this cookie cutter style. And it's a little bit, I don't want to go into a whole kind of rant about this, but the quarters feel like the scope is too set in stone. Things like large scale Scrum, a bit more interesting, where they do multi-planning sessions. And they might happen on a shorter basis than a giant quarter. So do you only get to see what the team with the dependency is planning at the PI? Or are there opportunities before and are there opportunities throughout? So when you leave the PI, are we able to kind of stay close? Can we see their board? Do you have a scrum of scrums? Are there connecting events? Do you see what I'm saying? To pick up on things.
Yes, and there's definitely techniques we can use to alleviate the risk. So what you mentioned is a good one. Do we have a regular scrum of scrums where we can see what they're working on, what progress they're making, whether they're falling behind or not? But there's other techniques as well. If they're falling behind on the epic, could we as a team perhaps swarm and help them out with their other work? Could some of their team members perhaps be dedicated to us and come across and help work on this critical piece of work that we need? So there's different options that we can explore to try and reduce the risk of things of this being missed.
Yeah, it's a great point. And as we start to conclude, to think high level, this is a very, very common problem. And there's a really good answer in the agile rooms where someone's talking about flow metrics and removing dependencies. And without a doubt, that is the optimal answer, right? Crush dependencies. And I just want to caveat that by the way of saying dependencies and interdependencies are different things, right? We go after dependencies, not interdependencies. And we can talk about that in another topic. So what we've come around to, and I want to emphasize here, is we can't make any of the change unless the team who are dependent on us or who we're dependent on understand why it's important that we get what we need and how do we have that rapport and that connection to even get that conversation going. So human stuff, prerequisites for predictability, understanding the art of the possible with a data-driven approach, and what are the events that connect teams in an ecosystem at the start of planning and throughout. These are the high level moving parts that we can't, we're just, we're shooting off the hip, aren't we here? But
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
kind
definitely.
of rounds it up. All right.
Yeah, and leading to the ultimate question: if this is happening all the time, how do you remove these dependencies? Are our team structures wrong? So that's sort of the goes to the root cause. But we also understand that you will have dependencies. You can't ever get rid of them completely. So that's what we're touching on. Yeah,
Yeah,
how to reduce the risk of those being missed. Yeah.
exactly that. Awesome. And it's a much more complex conversation around system structure and other constraints. Anyway, I hope that was useful. We're being timed out, which is probably a good thing. Thanks, team.
Thanks. Cheers.
Bro, let me just end this and come back in 1 second because this is still recording.
All right.